Welcome to the second part of Jest tutorial. In this part, we're gonna finish the project, write more specific tests, and we will speak a little bit about the configuration. If you don't have the code for the previous part, please find it in the description of the video. So let's start with visiting the documentation again. This is jest.io, so documentation of the Jest. In the Getting Started section, you can find this section about configuration. Why is it important? Maybe you don't need this file in all your project, but if you create something really complex or a bit complex, you will need this file for your own configuration. So I think it makes sense to show it. Let's create a Jest config here, and we'll use a model exports to export the object, and here property of the object will be a configuration. We'll use this configuration test environment. Test environment node. By default, it's actually Jest DOM, the value here. So I set it to node because we're using backend. If you use something like window, for example, in the node environment, it will be undefined. So if you write the test for React or Angular, something else, or just regular JavaScript that should be run in browser, then you should put the Jest DOM here. This is just one of the configuration. They have a lot of configurations. For example, there is a verbose flag, or for example, notify. By verbose flag true, you should see much more when you run yarn test. You should see much more details in the test summary here. Something like this, and if you put it to false, we should see the less details. Something like this. So just two configurations. If you do what is written here, and then you will create this file automatically from the Jest CLI, for example. It will be a huge file with a lot of configurations, and you can find what you like. You can also add the Babel very easy by adding this to a project and then add the Babel config. For example, if you want to use the ES6 features, ES6 imports, for example, you need this Babel preset NV. And also the TypeScript can be added very easy, the same idea with Babel config, but with preset TypeScript. So I think it was important to cover this section because I think you can find it useful in your project. If you use TypeScript or ES6, for example, then you will need this for sure. Let's go back to our tests. And before we continue, I want to fix one thing here. This is a bad copy paste actually here. This is okay, it's fine. It should return one book, which actually makes sense, but should return one book here actually doesn't make sense, because here we test that the name is concatenated with the year. So that's exactly what should we test and should we write here. So let's change this message to should concatenate title with year of published date. I think that's what's going on. Let's go inside and see format book name. So if there is a published date, we get the full year from the year of publish and we can concatenate it. So this test actually covers it, but I personally don't like these tests. Because this is not the best notation. We can use it, we can actually assert it much better. We can use another thing, not to be, but something specially for comparing the objects, which is actually much better in this case. Now I want to show you this website. It's called Jest Cheat Sheet. I think if you Google Jest cheat sheet in Google, you will see it. It's like one of the first links. The website is called DevHints, and I actually highly recommend this. I have no idea about the creator of this website, but I like this cheat sheet. I personally opened it really a lot because usually forget about all these methods that Jest has, especially the assertions, this very useful in my opinion, and we will actually use it now. Here we can see that BDD syntax, behavioral syntax, that's exactly what we use, is describing it, because you can also use the test syntax, which is a bit different syntax, but in my opinion this is the best. So let's go to the expect. That's exactly what we want to do, and we want to expect the objects. And here we have some possibilities how to expect the object, and I will try to explain why we do this. So let's come back. Let's not compare the title, but use, for example, to match object, and here we'll put the object that we should have, and it has a title. I'm sorry, let's copy this first. It has the title like this. Let's run the tests, see if they are passing. Yeah, they pass. So why this is better? This is better because we have this to match object, which means we can take the first book and see if the part of this object is what we expect. We expect that this object has this, but actually has a lot of different properties. And if we use, for example, to be, which is absolutely wrong, because it compares the equality. So this will show us, let's close this, make it bigger. It will show us that we received these properties, and it will actually never be equal because the instances of these two objects are different. So that's how you should not compare the objects with to be. What you can use to match object or to have property. I actually prefer to match object. I think it's the best because you don't need to put the exact object. You can just put the subset of the data, and if it exists in your object, it passes the expect, which in my opinion is a very useful thing, and here we can use this. Okay, so let's continue with adding more tests. Let's go to our book service and see what we covered. I think we covered many cases, most of the cases, let's say, for this function, and we can cover the rest. Let's see what we covered. Oh, I think I forgot to change it back to match object. Let's test it again. Okay. So I think we lost the description here because I put the verbose false. Let's put it true again. And let's make it yarn test watch. Or before, let's open the coverage. Remember our coverage, and we should see how that overall increases. For example, I don't know why this is broken. Let's make it again. For example, here we see the all files and per file. How many statements, how many functions and lines. Let's just compare this as the main metric, in my opinion. And statements, so this is red, this is also red, this is red, and this is 51%. Yeah, so let's make it better. Let's make it better. Let's make them green, and most of the lines should be covered. Let's see. Let's write more tests here. Let's put it to the watch mode, so we'll see if new tests are immediately passing. And let's close it. Let's also close this, and we'll write a new block because now we will test other functions, not the search book, but we will test other functions. What other functions we have? Let's say search book we completely tested, and this is a private function of the search books, and we have a next function here in this file, get most popular book. So it uses books provider and get the books, and then by the amount of how much it's ordered, it reduces the book and gets the most popular book. So it's actually just one book. because it's using the reduce. Okay, let's test it. Let's make a new describe and copy the function name. So this is the test block for this function. And let's make another describe here. When 2 books are given, for example, then what we will do, it should return book with highest order count. Yeah, so the most popular book. Let's do this. We will get the book from book service, get most popular book, and we expect that this book ID, for example, will be 1. So let's mock here using before each, because this is a safe method how to mock. And we'll mock the books provider, actually get books method. Sorry, mock it with just a fam. We'll make it to return the array of books. And here we'll have a book with ID 1 that has a property ordered. I think it's ordered 100 times, for example, and another book here with ID 2 that is ordered only 15 times. So it should return the first book because it has the highest order, and oh, I'm very sorry about this. And the test should pass. And it passes. Should return the book with highest order count. Let's see what we can also test here. I think this is all what we can test. And we can also test that it returns the empty array if you have no books, but this is not a very useful test in my opinion. How we can better test it? For example, we can say that the ordered should be 100. It also will be a valid test. Okay, let's see how the coverage increased after this. Let's open this full screen. So we had 51, I guess, and now it's 58. Okay, we are doing better and better. Let's see. Let's again run the test watch, and let's continue. What other functions we have? This is done. We have calculate discount. So this is receiving a book ID as an argument. Get this book, find it from the get books, and if there is no book, it returns an error. And then you have the discount in percent, so it means 20% is a discount, and then you subtract the discount amount from the price. So it's basically like minus 20% of the price. You should get it. And we should test this as a calculation logic, and also this we should test as an error expectation. So let's do this. Let's copy this function name and add another describe, calculate discount, and create another describe here when book is given with ID, for example. And we have one test, and it should return price with 20% discount. Oh, sorry. Okay, and we have the price, book service, calculate discount, and book ID is, for example, 1. Then we expect price to be something, I don't know, let's see. And here we, in before each, we'll mock our get books. Sorry, it's actually we mock the book provider, not the service, because this is a database for abstraction. And get books, just a fun. And here we have only one book, actually, not an object, an array. Only one book with ID 1, because we use this book here, so it's very important that it will be found here. And the price is, so you should always use the easiest numbers, like the 1, 2, 3. Don't use any complicated numbers like 57, 100,000 something. Use the very simple numbers. For example, here I will put 100 because it's very easy to calculate the 20% discount. So of course here it should be 80 minus 20. So let's see, we added a new test. Let's see if it passes. And it passes, very good. What else we can test here? If, for example, if there is no book, we should see an error. This is also logic that you, for example, want to write a test for this. Let's copy the whole describe here. I copy the whole describe. And for example, when book with given ID not found, then we should throw an error. Yeah. So how to test if you're throwing an error? First of all, let's just return an empty array here. No books and any ID, it will not find the book, of course. So what we expect here, you cannot use this because the exception will break the jest. Let's go back to this cheat sheet and see what we can do with, for example, the errors. We have this expect to throw and to throw matching a snapshot. This is exactly what we want to use now. Let's do this. Oh, sorry. Let's go back and replace this with expect, and here we'll make a function. This is very important. No, and calculate discount 1, and we expect this to, what's going on, to throw, and here will be the message of our error. So this is, you don't need, because the function execution happens here, and it actually passes, but you also can specify the message name. I think if you specify it, it should probably fail. Yes, exactly, because this is the error message. Let's copy the error message from here, because it's not nice to copy it from the tests. Let's put the error message here and make like this. Yes, let's see if this test now is passing. Very cool. Okay, now you know how to expect an error. Yeah, and the last test is exactly the same, calculate discount, but it's asynchronous. So this is an asynchronous function. It returns a promise. It uses async await pattern, something like this. So it returns a promise in 1 second, like simulates a real asynchronous operation, a DB call, for example, any HTTP call. It actually calls the same function, but puts it in the promise here. I just made the same function async, because I want to show you how to work with async function in Jest. It's actually very easy, and let's make another describe here. Describe. Oh, it's actually a very nice snippet. Oh, cool. Describe and calculate async, and then let's make another describe when book is given with ID. Actually, we could just, I think we can just copy paste the whole thing. Just, for example, copy paste this, calculate discount, and make it calculate discount async. Yes. Then we will do exactly the same tests, but the difference here will be that we will need to use here await. So for example, let's see, it should not pass because we are using the asynchronous operations, but it actually passed, I think. Yes, this actually passed. Because we used the wrong method, we used the synchronous method. Let's use the asynchronous method, and also the same here. And it should not pass because we are not waiting for it. You know, it failed with this error. This error you can see, you will see a lot if you use Jest with asynchronous functions detect open handlers. It suggests you to use these flags run event and detect to understand where in the code you forgot to put an await, or you didn't await the synchronous separation. Like for example, is this place. We didn't await for this, it returns to the promise but not the value. So actually that just shows you that some of the functions they are still in progress while the tests are finished. Let's make here await. Async, and I think after this it should work. Yes. The difference here, there is almost no difference, I think. It also can work and sometimes it cannot work. So what is very correct to do, let's say, it's to use here also an async function, for example await, and here we use async, and this is because we actually want to await here, and now we can see that it failed. And this is because this is wrong assert or expect for the async. You need to say that it first rejects and then to throw. Also we need to use the dot here. Somehow like this. This is just the notation you need to learn. You see the test passing now. Because if you use the async and you want to check for an error from async function, you need to use this rejects to throw. But in general, I think now we covered a very good amount of use cases in this tutorial. I also again can recommend you this cheat sheet that I found here. It has a lot of nice things, for example, how to skip the tests, how to use only one test, about before each and before all. Also the links here, and this is the best section here about the asserts that you usually forget, and about the mocking. This is also a very nice thing I would like to show you. When we used to have been called, we had no arguments, but I think I covered it in a previous section. But what you can do, you can also here do with what arguments. So if a function was called with some value, for example 1, 2, 3, if you don't know the value, you can say expect anything, I guess. This is also here. Or the best thing is object containing. If the argument of a function is an object, but this object is huge, you can put the object containing here. So we'll do exactly the same that you did for the match of the object here, but with to have been called. Yes. Okay. Let's put it back. The very last thing I want to show you before this tutorial is finished. Let's see how we increased our coverage in the very end. I think now should be green. Okay, now we have very positive results. This is also green. This is actually a very good number. And I think the 80 is the perfect. If you write more tests, they will start to write dump tests, as I said, like return the empty array and just increase the coverage. You usually don't want it. I think the 80 is a very, very high number. It's very well tested code. Something that you need to try in all your project, let's say. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed the unit tests with Jest and will use it for your personal project or in production. Thank you for watching this, and please like and subscribe to my channel. I plan to make more videos about JavaScript and web development on this channel, so stay tuned and goodbye.